Good afternoon once more. We are starting with the session. Dr. Nels, I would request for you to please put your video on, and then you can unmute yourself as we are going to start now.
All right, thank you. Is it over to me now?
Oh, okay, no, just 2 more minutes and then we'll come to you. Okay, my name is Vinolia and I am the marketing and event coordinator for ISCA. So for those who don't know what ISCA is, it's African Institute for Supply Chain Research. So I would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone and urge everyone to feel free. This is our 4th live session of Research Support Webinar Series 2022. So please feel free to participate and interact with our speaker as much as possible. So without any waste of time, today we have our guest speaker who is Dr. Nels Bothma. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but we do have Dr. Okay, thank you. We do have Dr. Nels Bothma, a senior academic at the University of South Africa, has a background in international trade and served as a foreign trade representative for South Africa in Vienna, Austria, and Istanbul at Turkey. After 13 years experience with the South African Department of Trade and Industry, Dr. Cornelius joined academia in 1995. He has authored or co-authored 19 books in the field of marketing and trade while contributing to a further 21. While still passionate about global trade, Dr. Cornelius has gained a second interest in the field of neuroscience and human factors as a result of the establishment of UNISA's Consumer Neuroscience Lab. Dr. Cornelius is now currently the M&D coordinator in the Department of Marketing and Retail Management at UNISA and has been active in providing supervision and SEARCH training for postgraduate students over the past few years. He has been providing training in SEARCH techniques for the likes of Sabinet, the CSIR, Philips, and other organizations since the 1990s when the internet was first into being in South Africa. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Cornelius Nels amongst us to come and take over. Dr. Nels, the platform is yours. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Maria. My first name is Cornelius, which I hardly ever use, and almost no one calls me that. So Niels is the shortening for Cornelius, and I kind of like Niels, so we can stick with that. I also want to take the opportunity quickly to say or pass on my congratulations to the African Institute for Supply Chain Research. They're doing a great job. Colleagues, if we can thank you. So yes, I think they're doing a great job, and I think this is an excellent initiative, and I think perhaps we in the marketing department should consider something similar, and it would be nice if we had a triage of supply chain and marketing and maybe operations and maybe even human resources doing similar things and working together in our separate fields. But anyhow, a hearty welcome to all of the academics and researchers across Africa. So it's a continental welcome to you, I believe. And if I look at the names of the people that are on this forum today, it looks like there are a lot from overseas. So we're really pleased to have you here. And I hope that I'm able to share something with you that you can learn and take back home and do something with. I am going to provide a bit of practical examples, and I'm going to use my own library and access my library to do that. You may be studying at other institutions, but please, really, I'm going to look at Scopus and Proquest these are two bibliographies that I think are very important in the world of literature research. So I think if you don't have access to our library, then you can go to your own library and see if you can't get those access to those sources yourselves. So without further ado, let me get going. What I want to, so the session today is about what is a literature review, or a literature review is actually the title. And I'm asking the question, what is a literature review? Starting as I would expect you to do if you were doing a doctorate, I would expect you in terms of the key ideas that you're coming to the fore with. If I'm a reader or an examiner of your thesis, and I'm reading through your thesis, and some of you might be master's students, but I'm going to stay with the term thesis. So we use thesis for doctorates and dissertations for masters in South Africa. But just to make life easy for myself, I'm just going to refer to theses to cover both. So if you're busy with your thesis and you are now starting to introduce it, I would like to see the main ideas being defined somewhere. So right at the beginning, and not just in the definition, in the contents, that's good and well, you should have that as well, but I would like to, in your discussion, see you define all of the key terms. I think that's very important to explain what you understand by a particular word. So in terms of a literature review, this is not copied from, it is a compilation of many other thoughts. I did a bit of reading, but it is no one specific thoughts, but it is a combination of ideas that I came across. So a literature review is a search, so looking for, and an evaluation. So in other words, looking at critically and deciding as to the value of what you are searching for, whether that document that you found actually fits in. And you could call it a survey, if you like, of the available scholarly and in practice literature. Now, what is scholarly? Scholarly for me is primarily, and most of the supervisors that will be looking after you will want to see academic articles. So the most of the literature that you're going to be pulling into your thesis is going to come from academic articles, but then also possibly prescribed books or textbooks, academic books, and then also from theses and dissertations that other people have written, other students have written. And then, of course, there's a wealth of other similar sources of relevant information, such as both disciplines, so in the field of supply chain, or practice, so people that are in the supply chain that are writing things in trade magazines or on other forums or the United Nations or whatever the case may be. All of these forums or fora are places where you could get additional relevant information to supply chain. And of course, what your given subject or topic is, because remember, we're talking about supply chain broadly, but you're going to be doing a very narrow topic within supply chain. So whatever your chosen topic is where you should be looking for relevant information, scholarly information. And really your exercise, or what you have to do, is to critically summarize the current state of the literature. It is up to you to sort of bring it together. And what I am suggesting, and you'll see, I'll show you something a little bit later on, you should really have a table at the end of the day. Somewhere, it might be in your document, so in your text, or it might be as an appendix at the end, but I want to see or get a sense of what you have done in terms of getting to grips with your field. And I don't want to read it all. And you could simply just put links there if you want me to go and see the article as a whole. I just want to see a short summary, and I want to see a critical summary. Not just this is what they say, but I want you to unpack it as to whether it is good, whether it is relevant, and whether, or maybe it's bad and not good enough to your field, and whether it is supporting the state of the art in your field, whether it is bringing history, bringing away, bringing some insight as to how this world that you are working with has grown, and so on. So this search and this evaluation that you're doing is creating a literary framework within which you will demonstrate or argue how your search will fit in, your research will fit into to this literary framework, or at least how this literary framework supports your research. And that is the aim of the literature review. The literature review should also be enable you to identify relevant theories, because remember, don't get confused. Sometimes right in the beginning, in the early days of my studies, I often talked about, oh, I'm going to look at the theory. And in a sense, you do look at the theory. That's not wrong, but it's also not right, because when I said I'm going to look at the theory, I meant I'm going to look at the literature. And within the literature, there are theories that you're going to draw on. These are ideas and possibly models that have been put forward by other researchers to try and make sense of the world that you're dealing with. And a theory is really that. It's a theory. It's an idea that has possibly not yet been tested. And then, of course, you've got your methods and models and frameworks and stuff like that are usually being tested somehow or have gone through a scrutiny, if you will, and they are more accepted than just theory. So just bear in mind, a theory is a subpart of the literature review that you're going to be doing. So you're going to get an understanding of your field, and you're going to also look at those theories and the models that play out in that literature or in that field that you're looking at. So that's really a broad and a long definition of the literature review, but I think it's important to get a sense of what we're doing. And that's what you should be doing in your dissertation as well. And the literature is your secondary data and the secondary research that you're doing. It is the support and the basis that you use to build your empirical study on. And if you do a really good literature review, then you're setting yourself a solid foundation on which to do the empirical work, the primary data that you're going to be collecting, whether it be qualitative or quantitative or whatever the case may be. The secondary data is the core to everything. So bear that in mind. Do this right, get the literature right, and everything else is going to fall into place or be more easy to justify and build the rest of your thesis on. So why do we do literature reviews? Well, so I've provided a couple of summaries. These are really summaries, and they are topical, or they are methodological, or they're historical, or they look at connections. So under topical, you might be looking at trying to narrow your topic. And we recommend, I don't know what your supervisors are telling you, but I would be pretty sure that they're saying to you, you've got to narrow. If the narrower your topic, the more focused you are, the easier it's going to be to do your study. So really try to narrow your study down. Don't try and solve all of the problems of supply chain in one study. It's not possible, and you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot. So topical reasons, one is to narrow your topic, but one is also to inform. You also want to get a sense of what is happening in your field. So it is an education, if you will, for yourself as to what is happening in your chosen topics. And then also you want to get other ideas about what is happening. So you may have a specific focus. And I will come to a topic later that I am exploring at the moment, just to use that as an example to provide you some idea of how I'm going through the process. But you want to, if you're looking at the world of ergonomics, for example, this is the world that I'm moving into now. Seems a bit strange, but I'll explain it a little later why. There's many aspects of ergonomics. For example, you have the cognitive, so the brain perspective. You have the anthropometric, so that is your body and how your body moves and stuff like that. So there's different perspectives. And I am interested in the cognitive. I'm not so much interested in the others, but I have to understand those because they work together. So whatever you've chosen as a topic, you may have to get a sense, even if it's small snatches of other ideas that support what you are doing or that tie in. And so we come down to this part here, the interconnections within your field. This is the connection reasons why you do a literature review. That's to try and understand what other things are tying in. What are the other possibly constructs? What are the possible variables that you might be drawing into your study? And then also outer connections, because beyond your topic, and supply chain topic, your supply chain topic may be touching on operationals research. It may be touching on marketing. It may be touching on quite a lot of other areas that are not core to supply chain, but are related and integrated with that. So warehousing, for example, I'm thinking of. So and you may want to bring some of that literature into the picture as well. What you bring in is really for you as the student, and with the guidance of your supervisor, to try and understand what is relevant and what is missing. And if you're missing something, then what can you need to go and find those little bits of extra information to make sure that you're covering and describing your field adequately enough for an examiner. So the examiner that reads it must have that golden thread. That's very important, that golden thread that you are trying to understand or trying to capture. But at the same time, they shouldn't be asking questions. The moment your examiner asks a question, it means you haven't addressed that. So it might be that the examiner asks that question to themselves. They may decide that it is worth asking you why you did not touch on it. But you don't want them, even in their own head, to be asking questions about your work. To say, now, why is he saying that? Now, why did he not cover, or why did she not cover that part of the work? So I think it's very important to make sure that you really apply your mind with the help of your supervisor to cover all of the issues, but don't go overboard. It's a very fine balance, and I can't easily teach you that balance. And that's the role ultimately of the supervisor, to go through it with you and to say, okay, that's enough, or no, you need something more. And don't think we as supervisors know all the answers. As we go through, this is sometimes a frustration for students, because as we go through the literature review, we get to a point where we are saying, no, I think that's okay. And then as you move forward in what you're writing, and we read this, we start to think in our own minds, we start to ask questions, and we say, I wonder if that's enough. I wonder if my student has covered that issue, or whether the examiner is going to pick up on this. So in my own, I've got a doctoral student now, and I'm thinking to myself, I need her to do something more in a particular aspect. I want to get that chapter, the latest version of it, and I want to see whether she's covered that, because now I'm sitting at night and I'm also thinking about this topic, and I'm wondering whether that's covered. So that's one issue. And then, of course, methodologically, you want to know that you are doing using the right methods. If you're doing factor analysis, or you're doing regression, or you're doing qualitative, and you're doing grounded theory, or you're doing ethnographic, there's so many. There are probably, and I don't think I'm going to be far off if I say there's 1,000 methods out there that you could use, and you've got to find the right one, justify it, always justify everything that you do in your study. You should justify, why am I choosing this sampling method? Why am I going to use that, or adopt this paradigm, or this lens on my study? Then, of course, there's historical reasons. And, sometimes you may need to understand how something has gotten to where it is at the moment. So the historical perspective could be the main focus of your study, but it could just be a supporting part of your study. And then there's other things that you might also want to know. And that is, for example, the issue of context. In what context are you doing the study? It could be a country context, but it could also be an industry context. And even with an industry context, I mean, if you take supply chain, there are many aspects of supply chain. There are materials handling, there are the human factors, the human element that goes through supply chain. There's the management of it. There's the models that they use to measure it, the metrics that they use to measure it, warehouse. There's so much. And you've got to explain to the reader, and in this case, when I say reader, again, understand I'm also speaking about the examiner. You've got to explain to the examiner, what am I focusing on and why? Always justification, always justification. So let's move on. I've got a lot to cover. So the aim of the literature review is to place each work that you find in the context of its contribution to understanding of the research problem you are studying. Remember, so when you go through this list and you create this table, you've got to tie up that article or that study that you found. You're going to tie it up with what you are doing. Then you have to describe the relationship of each work to the others under consideration. You may find that they may disagree with each other, or they may support each other, and you might use them in a supportive way, or you might use them to contradict each other and to say, well, this is what I think, but there are also other people that think differently, and I will look at that as well. And you might want to look at different ways of interpreting existing research, try and reveal gaps, and please be careful when you say there is no gap or there's no literature on a topic. This is the first thing as an examiner, and rest assured I have done that. If I've done anything a lot of, and that's examine, I have examined almost 40 masters and doctorates. And the first thing that makes me look harder at that work is if a student says to me, or if a candidate says to me, there's nothing on this topic. If they say that, I'm going to make an effort to go and see if there is really nothing on that topic. I'll spend 3 or 4 hours of my own time searching that field to see if I can find something. And if I find something, if I find anything and you've said there's nothing, I am going to really look at your dissertation very critically. You have to convince, and by doing this literature review, this is one way of convincing people either that there's a very small gap, this is covered, but it's perhaps not covered in this industry, it's not covered in sufficient depth, or maybe in this country, or whatever the case may be. So you may have to qualify the gap that you're looking at. As we do more and more and more and more research, so the gaps get less and less and less and less. But there's very seldom that there isn't a gap where there's been nothing done. Resolve the conflicts, seemingly contradictory. We talked about earlier, I talked about here about people having different ideas. And yeah, you might want to look at those two different ideas. That might be the issue. You may find somebody saying left and another one saying right. And what you want to do is to have a look at which of these two views are the correct ones. Correct one. Identify areas of prior scholarship to prevent duplication of work. So before you go down a particular area, you're trying to see if there's other work done there. Point the way to fulfilling a need for additional research. So you're looking for all of that evidence that I am on the right track. So it's about the right track. And then you also want to locate your own research within the context of the existing literature. Remember, it's very important to link the literature to your study, and again, backwards to locate your research within the context of the literature that already exists. This is where I fit in. And if you can explain to the examiner where you fit in, it just makes everything else in your study easier. They're going to be much more forgiving if you've gotten that aspect of it right. And then to show, because part of what you're doing with a doctorate or doing with a master's is showing your knowledge. And just by revealing to the reader the extent of your reading and how much you have read and what you have grasped from that shows them your knowledge. And that is a very big tick in any MOD that's being done. And we've talked about the common ground and differences. Justify your own work, we've spoken about. It helps to inform the subsequent qualitative and quantitative or mixed method. Yes, that's very important. So from your literature, you're going to move into the empirical side of your study, and then you're justifying, why am I qualitative? There's very little done here. Therefore, I'm going to use grounded theory, and I'm going to try and get to grips with the issues that play out in this world because I don't understand it. Nobody seems to understand it clearly, and we need to do some qualitative grounded theory research. Or maybe there is some work there, but it needs more, so it's still qualitative. You're still going to be doing in-depth research to try and understand it better. Or if you already have some understanding and you have certain hypotheses that you want to test, or some models that you want to put into place, or you want to test those models, then you start moving into the quantitative side. Or you may, very often, it may be a bit of both. So in other words, you start off as a doctorate, you start off by looking at doing some in-depth research to understand the issues that play out in your country, because you may be looking at something from another country, some research that's been done in another country, but it hasn't been done here. But if it's going to be done here, you almost have to step backwards. You can't just continue forward. You have to step backwards and look at all of the issues that are relevant in the South African context, or if you are from Tanzania, in a Tanzanian context, because the two countries are not necessarily the same. There are many, many, many differences. So to take something from one country and just apply it here and move forward, building on that, is just not enough for a doctorate. For a master's, perfect, but for a doctorate, you would need to step back and do qualitative research and make sure that you're getting to grips with everything that plays out in your industry on your topic. So it may be, so if you're doing a thesis by articles. You may find that, so I'm trying to do something now, I'm doing another master's, and although it's not allowed in my university, I am actually going to write 3 articles, or try and write 3 articles as a master's. So one of them is going to be a standalone literature chapter. You could use your literature review as a standalone study as well. And that's something that could be recommended, because you remember you also have to write articles often on your doctorates or your masters. We've already mentioned that one. And then identify trends, always the trends, what's happening, what's changing, and so on in your study. Some of the challenges is that people often see research as a linear process. I do this, all in, but it is actually a very interactive and fluid and iterative. It's constantly going back. That's what I said to you as a supervisor. When you get to chapter 5, then the supervisor says, but did you actually address this in your literature? You're talking about this, but I don't remember that we spoke about this in the literature. Now they want you to go back and look at chapter 2 again. And this is very frustrating for students because, but we don't have that. We haven't got the foresight to see everything, all the perfect sides of your study up front. And it's also as we walk with you and we experience your study with you that we start to realize there are some things that still need to be dealt with, and means you having to go back. So it is very much a backward and forward and fluid and interactive process that you're involved in. And you should not see it as static, but continually evolving and a continual process. So it's quite challenging, because from a student perspective, that's frustrating. And then you have got them being one-dimensional in their function, only to provide information about the topic, rather than being multidimensional. In other words, being able to provide information about many aspects of the whole research process, including the methodology, including when you get to your findings, because the findings you should be going back and drawing on the literature to support your findings and say, I found this, but somebody else also found that. And the same comes up when you're doing your conclusions and your way forward. Now, just as far as literature is concerned, there is gray literature. So we said that we want you to do academic work, but there's a new focus on the world of what's called gray literature, which is all sort of the non-academic things like reports from governments, the UN, state-of-the-art working papers, excuse me, conference proceedings that you might come across, non-commercial translations of work. So there's a ton of other stuff that if you're doing a thorough study, you should be looking at some of that too. So don't ignore that. But colleagues, just switch off your mics, please. Excuse me. Growing interest in grey literature. So I've just provided you an article there that you can have a look at and just be aware of it. Remember, when you evaluate your sources, you want to know who wrote that. Is this author an expert? Is this author someone that you can rely on? Has this author done a lot in this field? What is the topic that they are working on? Is the topic in line with yours? Is it credible? What opinions are they sharing? Where are they doing this research? Is it in another industry? Is it another country? How old is this research? And that's a big thing in masters and doctorates. And we are fighting with our students all the time, because if you draw on something in 2022 and you draw on something that is 2016, by the time you finish your doctorate in 5 years' time or 4 years' time, that thing is now almost a decade old, that source. So we strongly recommend for you to find the latest sources now, and then you're going to find, this is another frustration, that when you get to the end, you're going to find yourself having to upgrade your references. And my word, that is one of the toughest, most frustrating, you almost want to give up at that point where you have to go back to your thesis, go through all of these references and find the old ones and try and find something new in their place. And that is, excuse the expression, that's help. So try and right now get the latest work that you can, especially if you're working in something like e-commerce or e-marketing or whatever the case may be. Then we want to see the latest stuff, because you can't be talking about old ideas, because that world is changing so fast. Why are they doing it? Are they objective? What is the bias? Where does it come from? Is the journal is it a predatory journal? So, and then how do they do it? In other words, what is the research methodology that they use? So I'm drawing on a work of a colleague of mine, and I'm talking quickly because I have a lot to cover. And this comes from the work of Professor Paul Prinsloo, who is an accredited NRF-rated, B-rated researcher, if I'm not mistaken. And he is really world-class. He's in the field of learning analytics and metrics. That's the field that he's in. And he does a lot of what is called systematic reviews, literature reviews. And so he provided this, which I thought was very nice. I'm going to just go through it very quickly. So a literature review, I'm going to give you another picture which will sort of summarize my view of his work. So remember, it's my view. And that is that, to me, a literature review is sort of the general phrase that is used to cover the broad work of what you do. And they are normally high level. In academic work, they're usually just done by the academic, and they're looking very broadly at the emerging themes or issues. They're trying to find a gap. They may end up in identifying a model, but there is very little guidance or structure in how the information was found. And that is perhaps one of the weaknesses with a traditional literature review that you would mostly see amongst our academics, yourselves, myself, even, I mean, trust me, I speak here as though I know it all, but I go through the same frustrations and make the same mistakes that all academics do. We all do this. So here's some interesting references that you can use. And a systematic review is something that I'm going to walk through very quickly. And this is what Professor Prinsloo does mostly. Systematic review is a very complex study of the literature. It often takes anywhere from 6 months to a year. It usually involves as many as 6, 7, 10. I've seen some of these systematic reviews with 10 people involved, and everybody together reviews that literature and comes up with their view of that literature, and then they combine that and it's a highly organized way, and I'll show you more about that in a moment. And then there's scoping reviews, which is a sort of I'm going to place this in a moment, so just bear with me. A scoping review is broader than a systematic review, and I feel that as academics, as newbie masters and doctorates, you should be moving away from a literature review and moving more towards a scoping review. Forget the systematic review, but moving towards a scoping review in which you follow an organized process to structure the literature that you have. And I'll give you some ideas there. Bibliometric studies, those are studies that look at the references that you often use and come across in articles, and they try to get a sense of who are the most contributing authors, where do they come from, who are the major gurus, what are the major themes that are written. So it really focuses on the references side of things. And annotated bibliographies is a little bit shallower. The one is more quantitative, looking at numbers and putting numbers to the references, how much of this, how many of that, and so on. Whereas the annotated bibliographies really is just a table with the references and with a very short summary and a description perhaps of each of those, so that it kind of fits into the big picture of a literature review, but it's focused more on the references side of things. And before I forget, as you go through your literature, remember, please, that although you find a lot of, if not most of your ideas and your work from the bibliographies and so on, you will also find many other sources from the references of a good article. So if you find an article that fits with what you're doing, go and look at the references. That's where you're going to find more relevant stuff. So please bear that in mind. Don't ignore the references. And then meta-analysis, I'll show you in a moment what that does, but really meta-analysis takes a look at it takes a look at the studies that were done. So instead of looking at the literature within those studies, it actually tries to get a sense of the methods and the findings that came out of those things and to compare them across. So it will look at, let me move on and I'll show it to you in a minute. So here we get to this bigger picture. This is I've divided it in the following way. This is a narrative review. When I say narrative, it's really a review where you're using words and descriptions to capture your literature. So that is a narrative review, and you get very general reviews. You get scoping reviews, which are broader and also fairly structured. So this can be structured. Then you've got theoretical reviews where you're looking at the concepts, you're looking at themes coming out of it. You've got historical reviews that you're coming out of it, and they're the methodology or methodological or the methods that have been used. That's where you're focusing on. So any of them, but in each of these, you are describing the review or the content that you're capturing from your review. In a systematic review, it's far more critical, far more organized. And if you don't follow a very clear structure, and if you don't explain every single step, and if you don't have multiple people doing it, then it's not a systematic review, and then it won't be accepted as a systematic review. They're very, very comprehensive. A rapid review is still highly organized, but done very quickly, and is not quite, it won't be accepted, for example, for an article, but a comprehensive systematic review will be. And there are many places where you can do and submit a comprehensive systematic review, and sometimes also scoping reviews. Meta-analysis, as I said, meta-analysis is when you are doing, so if you do a study of people that have, and their use of e-marketing or e-commerce, and you find that there are 20 studies and they've each done quantitative analysis, surveys, and they each have different findings with different variables, capturing each of those results from each of those findings and then comparing the findings, that's a meta-analysis. And a meta-summary is just more a descriptive side of it, a summary of a comparable number of studies. And a metasynthesis is when you're using qualitative studies and you're trying to extract the sort of ideas that are coming out of the qualitative research that's being done in these different surveys, and you bringing that together. So that's a metasynthesis. A meta-analysis is usually applied to quantitative, and then a meta summary is just a broad overview, again, of bringing things together in a comparative way. And often you might get these two being done together if you're doing a very, very comprehensive systematic review, and that's called the integrated review. And then we get our bibliometric reviews that I've spoke about earlier. So they all have different ways of doing it. They're different degrees of strictness. So let's move on. So as a minimum, you must appreciate that the literature review provides a summary of the literature related to your field of study. You must have a goal. You must do your research. Ground your summary in relevance. So when you're creating this table and you're summarizing all of the articles that you have found, make sure that that little summary writing is not just taken from the abstract and not just a meaningless summary. It is a summary that is relevant to your study and to your topic. Make sure, because if it's not relevant, then you ask yourself, why are you bothering writing it down? You're wasting the time. And have a organized and logical way of reviewing something, and include the reference of the works in a cited list in your that you have cited in a list is actually what that should mean. That should be in a list, should come up there, and then create that table as I've described. And I'm going to give you an example that comes now from Professor Prinsloo. So we've covered most of those. Don't use too many quotes, please. When you are quoting other people, then it becomes almost plagiarism. I don't want to see what other people are saying. I want to see what you understand of their work. And be careful with your paraphrasing. Don't paraphrase if it's not what you're saying. I have on several occasions, I've caught people out. I go back, I've actually gone back to the original source that they have quoted and provided. I have searched for the words that they have used in their article or their dissertation. I look for those words that they've used in that sentence or paragraph, and I've gone back to the source and I've searched for those words and paragraphs, and then I can find nothing in the source that supports that, and I have to ask them, where are you finding these quotes from? Because this just seems to be, you're just sucking it out of the air, so that's not acceptable. Revise, 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 and if you have limited findings, what do you do then? And one of the things that you can do if you have limited findings, obviously that suggests that there might be a study there, but just not much done on it. And Then you might go to other research. So if you're looking at something that hasn't been done in the field of, so for example, I had a master's student that looked at the laundry and dry cleaning sector in South Africa and their use of social media. Now, there isn't much. Nobody's done anything like that. And even globally, nobody cares and nobody's really studying the laundry and dry cleaning sector. So it was really difficult finding stuff. But sometimes you have to go to other fields. So if there's been research done on the small business sector, you might draw on that and pull that in and say, okay, this is what has been done in the small business sector. These are all small businesses. So therefore, we are assuming that, but you must justify. You must always justify. And then there's also this, when you're doing your literature review, there are everything from a cognitive perspective on things where you think about, it's really the logical, the words that you're using, whether you're deriving or you're contrasting or comparing or assessing or just using and applying or just knowing and understanding. These are cognitive objectives. And then you've also got an affective. Affective is more like emotion, the stuff that is driving you emotionally when you're looking at your literature review. Understand, and that's why never tell me that you're doing, if you're in the social sciences, that you're doing a positivist study, because a positivist study can almost not be, it cannot be positivist if you are creating your own questionnaires and you have got your own input and your own questions that you're creating because you are influencing the research, and then it's no longer positivist. And most students come to us and say they do, because they're doing quantitative, it's positivist. No, it isn't. It might be post-positivist. It might be many other things. It might be pragmatic, but it's not positivist. Those are for the pure sciences. So decisions to make, to define the research question, a research question that's going to drive your literature review. What data sources are you going to use? Are you going to use articles, books, Gray? Are you going to do quantitative, qualitative? What are the databases you're going to use? Scopus or Web of Science, Google Scholar, and maybe Proquest and so on. And then do the search and use the criteria for inclusion and exclusion and appraise your first corpus, your first set of results, and then go through that and try and get a sense of what's happening in that first bunch of findings that you get, and then use that to start to direct yourself and your study as you move on. Analyze, synthesize your final corpus of findings from your present findings. So you're moving from present to a final situation. Now, this is one thing. Here's the address over here in the corner. I want you to go and have a look at Prisma. Prisma is mainly for systematic reviews, but it can also be used for scoping reviews. And it has a very well-known checklist. I'll get onto the checklist here. This is what it looks like. And this checklist tells you how you should go through it, from identification through screening, through what you include, and always. Josephine, please switch off your mic. Josephine, let me see if I can open. There we are. Thank you. And this is all the records. So this is what you're doing on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, this is your results. This is what you found. There were so many that were excluded, so many that you couldn't retrieve, and what the reasons were for this, that, and the other, and you get to those that you included in your study. So there's a very clearly organized. So please visit Prisma and don't follow the systematic review. That's far too much for a doctorate. But have a look at the scoping review, and I want you. There's all sorts of decisions. I'm going to jump through this. You've got the slides, so you can have a look at this yourself. I've already talked about this. I'm going to talk about this again in my own section a little later. As I said, this comes from Professor Prinsloo, and I'm running out of time, I see, so I want to get to other things. And I'm also going to cover, so all of these things that I'm showing. So he's going through this exercise and he's showing you how he is moving from 2.6 million down to 23,000 results, then down to 11,000 results, then down to 3,000 results, then down to 539 results, and how he is getting more and more focused in his literature review. And choosing your databases, we recommend that you should use Google Scholar only as a start. Google Scholar should not be your main source of, or your main place where you do your searching. If you were my student and I'm the supervisor, I would want to see you researching Scopus because they are the biggest bibliography that there is. And after that, I would want to see you using the Web of Science. And after that, I want you to see you using the Proquest dissertations and thesis data bank, so that you can also bring in database theses and dissertations that have been done around the world and bring that study into yours as well. But Google Scholar is a good place to do your first, what I call a sandpit, to do a little bit of scratching, to get a sense of, as we said earlier on, to get a sense of what's happening in your field. Remember, I spoke about Professor Prinsley trying to get a sense of what's happening in these first corpus he talked about, remember. And you must understand how the databases work. I'm going to talk about a few of them. Why did you choose them? Give your justification. And think of why people would criticize you. A lot of academic or examiners might criticize. If you use Google, they would say not acceptable. If you use Wikipedia, they'd say not acceptable. And if you use Google Scholar, they would frown. They might accept it, but you must justify. Always provide your, or think about what the criticism is, and then always justify why you're doing this. And if you've done different databases, then you might want to just highlight that in your limitations and say, I only looked at these. It might be that there are more. This is especially if you're doing systematic reviews. Remember, I said they're very strict and very, very strict and very structured. So this is, you'll see that he studies, that was his research question. How did learning analytics allow educators to respond to learners' risk? They started off with a search that came up with 160 downloadable articles using those two search terms. Then they used different search terms, and they got from 51% to 31% down to 11%, and they resulted ultimately in 80 articles. So it just shows you how they are narrowing it down. And we'll get to this. This is their own, this is a snapshot from their own computer and how they organized it, because there were 3 people working on it. This is the commentary. Verification by the second researcher, third researcher. Those that were problematic, they made in red, the others were in orange, and then there were some that were desirable and that were in green. And there were inclusion and exclusion factors that they used, and they noted that up front what they were. So it was very organized. Anybody looking at it can see the objectivity that went into this, and this is what you should be doing. I'm going to jump, if you don't mind, because I'm running out of time, and you'll see this is the table that they came up with, and this is the heading. You'll see all of these things came out of their study. The sources, whether they conceptual or empirical, the development focuses, all of these you can see as maybe constructs or variables that they might use or report on in their study. So it's a very organized and critical way. And these are the checklists from Prisma that I'm suggesting that you go, but remember there's one also for Scopus, for scoping reviews. Use that. You can look at this in your own time. And this is another thing that you can look at, and I've provided a statistical source here at the bottom that you can look at how you can use it. And they also give guidance on using it in SPSS. And this is a way of ensuring that if you're using more than one reviewer, that the reviewers that there's a certain consistency or high kappa value they speak about, indicating an excellent value for agreement across the reviewers. Now, would you use reviewers? You might. My masters that I'm doing now, I'm using external reviewer to look at what I've done, because I'm doing something, and if I did it on my own, then that probably wouldn't be acceptable enough. So I'm having somebody else check my work. And so the idea of using a Fleiss kappa might be something that I would still consider for my study. So if you're using somebody to check your work, then that might be relevant. This is the systematic review versus the scoping review, an excellent article. You'll find a lot of this gets done in the medical field, and I'm not going to go through this. I've already spoken enough about reviews and literature reviews for you to, and you can get a sense just, the difference. And here is Professor Prinsley doing one as well. You'll see that they're slightly different with different exclusion and inclusion criteria, and they had different results as well. But they still use that Prisma checklist to come up with a similar result and structure. So please read this article. You can see how many people review this field or this topic. So the final tips to final question is everything. Choose your research partners or your reviewer carefully. Be careful about what allocation of responsibilities. Keep Prisma in mind the whole way through. and look at other systematic and scoping reviews and present the findings. You look at other people, what they've done and how they've done it, and take away something from that and choose your journals carefully. So this is on to what I want to talk about as well. This is more about my world of search engines. Just remember, a search engine, really a lot of it happens behind the scenes. You don't know about it. The search engine has a spider that travels around the world. It's algorithms and robots that go around from website to website, and they look for new or updated information. They then pass and index that information, the new information or the updated information they pass, and they store it on a data bank. And then finally, you get to search the data bank using Google or Bing or whatever the case may be. And then they present you what is called a search engine results page or a SERP. Now, so you must remember that this that you see on the results page is not coming immediately or directly or instantly from web pages. It's coming from a data bank, and it might be old. Some of it might be very old. Some of it might just be hours old or days old, but it's not coming from the web itself, never. So just bear that one aspect in mind. This is very important, and or not. This is the original search logic. It's called Boolean logic by George Boole. And the and is when you want to look at two words in a document. You want puppy and kitten, both of those terms, to be in a document, not necessarily next to each other. The one can be at the top and the other one can be at the bottom, but both of them are in that document. Or one or the other can be in the document. So obviously, if you use or, you're going to get more results than you would if you used and. And then not is where you would have puppy not being part of research because for whatever reason you're interested in animals, but particularly animals that are related to kitten or animals associated with kitten. I'll give you an example later where this can work. And just remember that or will give you a much greater set of results and will give you a narrower set of results. And then of course you can use things like inverted commas to have an exact phrase match for the key phrase that you're using. That's very important. I use that most of the time. I use phrases and not single words. And then you can use things like near. So if you want two words that mustn't be far apart from each other, they need to be close to each other for whatever reason. It does happen that you want it. You can have synonyms, like you use a tilde, and the tilde says that you want words that are similar. They are synonyms, if you will. And this is also for plus, it must be in there, and minus, it mustn't be in there. And often in Google, you would rather use the plus and the minus rather than the not. But Google by default uses an and, so you don't have to put in an and, but you can put in an or with Google, but then you must put the or as a capitals, and then it will find a greater number of results for you. So that briefly is the things, and then it's up to you to decide on that. I want you to go and have a look at this website. There are a lot of special advanced search operators. Please look at them. The ones I use a lot is file type. So I often look for file type PowerPoint or file type PDF or file type doc or whatever, the Excel, for example, and site. So if I'm looking in South Africa, I don't want to have .coms and .aus and UKs coming up. I only want to search in South Africa. So I use site ZA, and you can focus that narrow enough. It's much better in my university to search from outside using site unisa.ac.za than searching within it. I get much better results if I come from use Google to get into my own website. I often use images. I'll come to Google Bubbles in a second. I often use Google Images, and YouTube can be useful as well. And then images. The reason I use images is because if you look at the images, sometimes the images give you a better idea of whether you're on the right track or wrong track. Sometimes if you're looking at warehousing, there might be some aspect of it that's not the right idea that you have in mind. So it could be a problem. And then we've got, one thing I wanted to go back here and talk about. Let me just take a sip of water. And that is bubbles. So bear in mind that Google personalizes your searches for you. What you find on your computer will not be the same that I find on my computer. It's a major, major, major problem. And no two searches in the world will be the same. And that is because they track what you do and they keep a very comprehensive record of what you do. And if you are inclined to search in Africa because you're interested in African research, the results that you will find on the top of your first 10 or 12 pages will be predominantly African. And similarly, if you're searching Western stuff, then you'll find more Western results. And you are being influenced by Google. And that's for researchers that strive to be objective, that's a real frustration and a problem. So please bear that in mind. Bear in mind the issue of languages, because not everybody speaks the same language, nor does everybody have the same competency with language. There's things like meaning, a torch. We use go and fetch your torch. Other people might use flashlight or vice versa. The context, whether acid is used in the context of industrial or whether as a drug. Related words, steering wheel in a car and steering wheel are related, but they're not the same words. Whether a website or a search engine is sensitive to plurals or not plurals. Google, it's indifferent. It's also capitalization that you use. So Google is indifferent to capitalization. It doesn't matter how you capitalize your words. Synonyms, a motor vehicle versus automobile, that's quite important. Google's quite good with that, but still it doesn't always get it wrong. And you might want to think about synonym words and using those. And consider always using your library and making sure you use that. I said already, use Web of Science, Scopus, Proquest. In South Africa, don't forget to go to the National Electronic Theses Databank. There's the website for it. A portal is a place that is usually maintained by an individual and has useful information, and they take all the effort of bringing the information together, so they save you the effort of having to. So if you can find a really, 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 really good portal in your field, in supply chain, for example, then that is where you should spend a lot of your time, because you'll find a lot of good stuff there. Google Scholar, I've said, is a good place to start, but not your main, should never be your main source of work. Don't forget to also keep your own records. RefWorks, we have RefWorks at UNISA. Mendeley is free, so you can use Mendeley, but apparently they are being less and less supported, so and maybe not a good thing. And earlier on I spoke about, in the previous one, about images. Just have a look at images.com, google.com, a nice website as well. And then always remember to look for your keywords. Always, that's the most important thing on anything that you do in your literature review, is you'll start off with your keywords. What are the keywords that make sense to what you are studying? And it could be key phrases. So a phrase would be multiple words that you would put in inverted commas. So key phrases and keywords, that is the absolute core to what you're doing. And check them out on Google Scholar, check them out on Google Scholar, then go to Scopus, check out Proquest. If you're in South Africa, look at Nexus. Elsewhere, you would also look at Web of Science. Sorry, I'm clicking and it's going on. This, and I'm pointing on the wrong computer, so you're not seeing my mouse all of this time. Sorry, I want to go back one. This Obsidian was something that was just told to me today, and it seems like a wonderful resource. I've got a colleague that's been struggling with his doctorate, and he says this has been the biggest, the most useful thing that he has come across, called obsidian.md. I'll show you a picture if I have enough time, if you're prepared to stay, because I don't have many minutes left. And Mind Manager is it's a spidering program that allows you to do spider diagrams and to organize your thoughts. And it's extremely powerful because you can add links, you can make notes, you can capture documents, you can organize things, you can tap in with Mendeley and RefWorks and things like that. So it's a but it does cost money. You can have it for free for a short while. Your library might support you, but it is in the region of about a couple of $1,000 to buy that program. So unfortunately, that one, but Obsidian is apparently free. So I really recommend you have a look at it. So in my case, I'm interested in the world of human factors. I told you I'm in ergonomics, and ergonomics is human factors as well. And I have found that, I haven't found, the IARA is the Manufacturing Circle, the association dealing with manufacturing. And they have, I found out that the GDP, manufacturing's contribution to GDP has fallen from 24% in the early 1980s to 13%, and today it's below 10%. So manufacturing is falling away. And what are we doing to help our manufacturers? And I'm particularly interested in the world of the cognitive, as I said to you, neuroergonomics. And I'm interested in understanding how humans interact with products. And you could look at it from a cognitive or a rational or decision-making, emotional, intuitive or physiological or stimuli response basis. How does, when they see something, how do they respond? And then these are all of the technologies that I could use to track and to use to understand this interaction of humans with the products. And that's where I'm interested in. So if you think that you have production and you have design and you have the product, this is the human product interface. And this is the area that I've been looking at. And there's a lot of things that it impacts on, from functionality and obsolescence and materials and quality and lifespan, etc., all the way through to cost. And remember, I said to you, I'm interested in the cognitive, rational, and the intuitive, because that intuitive is also very much body-based. And I would use maybe EEG, I would use eye tracking, I would use galvanic skin response, and to do this. And these are the sort of results that you have to interpret to see how people are responding to things. And these are the keywords I came up with. All of these initially for a first sandpit looking at Google Scholar. And here is the Google Scholar. Sorry, let me just make sure I am where. Yes, here's the Google Scholar effort that I did. And you'll see I started off with human factors, 1.82 million. And then you also have the ability, I'll show you in a moment, the ability to control where Google Scholar searches. And when I control that 2018 to 2021, there's 50,800. And when I take column C as a percentage of column B, this gives me a sense of how much of it has happened recently. So this is a good idea as to whether it is recent. So you'll see here, for example, I found that when I did human interface, there were 67,000, but there were quite a lot of them, almost 10,000 of them had to do, and especially the top ones were coming up on the results, were all about human and animal interfaces. And I wasn't interested in human-animal interface, so I put minus. You remember I said I would show you when I would not use it, and I put a minus, or you can use a not and say, I don't want animal in this. I'm only focused, and I might want to put product into it. So somewhere here, I've got human product interface, but there wasn't a lot that I found in that search as well. So that just gives, and then I added ergonomics to that phrase. This is where I add ergonomics and human factors to that phase, and it dropped down quite a lot. And this, by the way, is when, let me just want to check something out. Yeah, so this, then I started doing other things. I looked at product design, and I brought product design into it, and I brought industrial design into it. And I was trying to get to grips with where my field of study should be. And in fact, when I had human factors and cognitive ergonomics, as you will see there, if we go back here, and cognitive ergonomics, this one, I think here, I found quite, and galvanic response. So that was with this one thrown in out of those 11 articles. I found a couple of really good ones. Now I was getting on track with what I was trying to do. So these were the articles that were relevant to me. So from here now I can go and look inside those articles at the references, but here I have an idea that I'm on track. But when I did my homework even further, I realized that it wasn't product interface or human interface. I was looking at the most popular term is called user interface or user experience. So these two are or user interface design or user experience design that I should be looking at. And you'll see that suddenly when I do this, I'm getting down to a much more manageable, and when I look at the results, a much more relevant set of results. And Yara just goes, again, this is user interface. If I looked at just Google, so Yara, I used Google, and this one I used, I think this was on Google Scholar. And then I want to do a practice, but we haven't got much time. I want to show you a few things on Google. Now, I know, Vinolia, how are we doing? I've only got a minute according to my clock. Are we willing to stay with me for a bit?
Yes,
Can we ask?
I'll give you 10 more minutes or 15 minutes, depending on how many slides you left with.
All right. I don't have many slides. let me just see. Yeah, I've only got 4 more slides, but I actually wanted to go online. So let me just check things and give me 5 minutes online and let me show you here some ideas. Remember what I spoke about previously. I'm going back, sorry. Previously, I said to you, there's a difference between getting ideas and finding sources. Sometimes you might be looking for a source to back up what you're saying. Other times you're trying to get an idea, you're trying to scope, you're trying to get the topic, you're trying to refine your topic. Sorry, let me just put this off. Refine your topic, so that's an issue. Then the age of the resources we spoke about, please don't make them old, make them new. Where you're getting them from, what are the trends that are happening, all of this sort of stuff you can get from Scopus. So I'm going to have a look at that in a moment. And here I did this in case I couldn't go on to Scopus. So you will see here, this is the same research that I did. I did it now using Scopus rather than Google Scholar, and you'll see how the resources, how it changed and how much more quickly I got down to the things that I was looking for. If I was looking at user interface design, human factors, and eye tracking, 54 articles, and suddenly I'm much more focused. If I was, and if I can justify this and I can highlight the articles in my appendix or in my document, and I can say, these are the articles I found, this is how I went about finding them, then the examiner is going to be very, very, very impressed with it, I can assure you, I promise you. And I certainly would be. And I'm going to be more lenient because I can see that you're an organized and structured researcher. And we're going to go through Proquest quickly, and then that is it. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes. I have got, we said, I've got now probably 8 minutes, so I'm just going to stop the share. And then I'm going to want to share something else. Let me find the one that I'm trying to put up for you. I'm sorry, I'm going to just close that. No, I don't want to share anything here. I'm going to close this. I just want to close this thing down so I can see. Bear with me. I just want to highlight the one. That's it. Okay, now I'm going to go here. Share screen, see if I can see it. There it is there. And say share. Are you seeing that?
Yes.
So you're seeing the library?
Yes.
All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just, first thing, let's just go back. This is Obsidian that I spoke about at Obsidian MD. It's in the slide, so you can get the website there. And this is a way of organizing your information, and you can also present it in your document. So imagine if I was the examiner and I saw this, I would be so impressed with somebody that has put in effort to what they're doing. And then, of course, we did speak about the issue of, can you still see what I'm doing? I've just made it smaller. You can still see it?
Yes, it's appearing.
Okay, fine. This is Mind Manager that I spoke about. And now I want to go to the library. All right. And you're still seeing the library now, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm at the UNISA library at this moment. I'm going to go in and I'm going to do a find e-resources. Now, remember, you might be working with a different university. You've got to get familiar with your own university. It'll work very different to ours. So don't expect to see your university providing the same sort of structured in the same way. But I just want to give you an idea. For those of you that are at UNISA, this just gives you an idea. I'm going to go to Scopus, A to Z. I'm going to go to S. And then from S, I'm going to go down and I'm going to search for Scopus. Let's just go down, Scopus, 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 Scopus. There we are. Then Scopus is going to come up. It's going to ask me to type my password in. And a password. I hope I've typed it in correctly. You know, when you want to show something, it never wants to work. While I'm busy with this, there we go. Okay, so we're in Scopus. It says I'm low resources. Obviously, I'm trying to do too much. And it's not giving me the searchability. If this doesn't work, just give me another 10 seconds or 15 seconds to see if it loads. If it doesn't load, then we'll move away from this. I'll show you one other thing. Yeah, okay. So let's try something. I'm going to search for inverted commas, human factors. And we're going to search for, and I could put and another term, or I could just say, I want to add another search field, and you'll see here, it's, are you seeing my movements? Colleagues, respond, please. Are you seeing what I'm seeing?
Yes, sir. We are able to see and.
Yes.
And, okay, that's what I want you to see. So I can add another phrase, or I could have put the phrase here. I could have said, and human factors and user design, or put in user design, or let's put in user experience just for the hang of it. User experience. And I'm going to close the inverted brackets if I want to search exact phrase. And then we do a search. Now we get 681 articles. And of the 680 articles, one of the things I often do, these are all tips, but you're going to have it recorded so you can go back. You'll see that I can change my search to have 200 results on a page. So sometimes that's actually quite nice, because then I have to go through a long up and down list, but I only have to change pages 3 times. Now I have to change pages 35 times, as you can see here. So that's one tip. Number 2, what you can do here, you have the ability to search across ages. So you can search from 2018, 2019, 2020, and so on. And then you can say, right at the bottom, you can limit to those years, and then you will only find articles for those years. And that's quite useful, because if you want the latest stuff, that's good. You can also get a sense of the number of who the main authors are. So this Peruzzunini, he has written 11 articles on this topic. So that's interesting. You can also see, and this is quite interesting as well, because you can get view more, and you can also view all. And if you view all, you'll see that in my area, and your area as well, you'll probably want business management and accounting. You might want to have economics, I don't know, or arts and humanities. Depends on the topic. You might want to include economics and econometrics, but you're probably not going to be interested in engineering or mathematics or medicine or anything like that. So you have the ability to filter your subject area and then limit to, and that's quite useful. I'm going to cancel this now, but that's a very useful feature. And you can also choose document type. So you can have conference paper, articles. You can see there's a lot more, and that's a very good indication. If you are finding more, conference papers than you are articles, it suggests it's a new area of research, because people tend to go to conferences when they're exploring new topics. So that's a very good indication that this area that I'm in is a young field. And then you could choose articles or conference reviews or book reviews and so on. I'd usually only stay articles and or conference papers, one of the two. You can look at the publication stage, mostly final. The source title, there are some places, some journals that are more popular than others. You can see those are the most popular journals. The keywords, affiliation. Now, the nice thing about this is I can actually analyze my research of the 681. And bear in mind, I could, if I want to now, do a search without going back. I could go and do a search within these 681. I can do a search within these results. And I can then analyze these. And often this is a nice thing to put into your thesis because it shows what's relevant. You're not going to take it all, but you might be interested in seeing where the documents are coming from country, who the major authors are, what type of articles are happening, when are the years. So you'll see now, for example, you can see the popularity. There was almost nothing until about 2005. And then in 2006, it went more, and then it started to grow. And you'll see in 2021, there wasn't a lot. And probably because it tends to be a touchy-feely, user interface is a touchy-feely field. And with COVID, I think a lot of that stopped. So you'll find that it's going to pick up again. So there's your sort of year. That's very useful to put into your study. Documents by year, by source, documents by authors. You can see who the main authors are, where the research is being done, where countries the research is being done, the document type and subject area. So very, very useful stuff to structure your research and also maybe to use in your findings as well. And then once you've done this analysis, what you can do is you can export this analysis and you can export it as a CSV. You can also go back here. If we go back one now to the results, and I can then also select, let's assume I select these 1, 2, 3, 4 ones that I want. They're not the ones I want, but then I can export them and it gives me what I want to export. I also want to export the abstract and the author keywords and the index keywords and maybe something else, I don't know, whatever. And I can export it as plain text. I can export in RIS format. I can export it to Mendeley, and I can export it as a CSV file. So this is really powerful. And you can take it offline and you can work with it and search for it and work through it and do your scoping review that I spoke about. So that is really Scopus then, and there's just so much here that and this is the biggest bibliography in the world. You must be using this one. So please start there. And now going back, I'm going to go back to just, I'm going to go to Google Scholar. Let's see, it doesn't matter. I'm just in a rush now. So let me just choose anything I want to say. Supply chain research. And I'm going to go here. I'm going to say search in Google Scholar, and hopefully it will do that for me. I should have put it here, supply chain research. I can make it exact phrase match, and then I can search for that. Two things that I want you to notice here. This feature here. So I can search at any time, and I can search a custom range, which is if you want your latest stuff, you might want to say, I want to have all the articles from 2018 to 2022. And there will also be, or there might, okay, there's not here. So let's say there might be 2022 or should be 22 articles. And you'll see now the number of results drops. I can also exclude, I don't want citations to be included. And I can do a search then with that excluded, not that it seems to make any difference here. So that's quite useful as well. Just remember this feature on Google. And then the last thing I want to do, I want to go back to my library. Sorry, that was there is the Nexus one on the thing, on the NRF data bank, the Nexus data bank of all of the M's and D theses that have been done. I'm going to go back here. I want to go back to my library. If I can log, no, I can't. Sorry, yeah. This last thing, one more minute I want to spend showing you something, and then I'm finished, colleagues. So I'm going to go to, I'm back here to that ZX, A to Z. I'm going to go to Proquest, click on Proquest, and then under Proquest, you'll see that Proquest have Proquest Dissertations and Theses Global. And this is the most comprehensive data bank of theses and dissertations. And let's be honest, they are also, you also want to see what your colleagues, what your peers are doing around the world. So now you can go and you can do a search But now remember the difference between Scopus. Scopus is not a full text search. So it doesn't search the whole document. It only searches the abstract, the keywords, the title, and things like that. So it's a much more limited research. That's Scopus. Proquest gives you a full text search, or you can. So you can search anywhere in the document, or you can choose to say search anywhere except full search, which is what I usually choose, because then it searches in the abstract, in the title. It's a much narrower search. So I want to search for what we did. We said human factors, and we said, and now I can also I can put here and I can go customer experience. No, we don't want a customer experience. We want to have, yes, let's say customer experience. That's what I think I chose. And you can also limit to full text or anything. And the other thing that you can do is you can choose masters or doctorates down here if you want to. So let's just do this as a search. And this one, I also want to search anywhere except. And then and remember, if a topic is going to be about, if an article is going to be about your topic, it probably has that word or keyword in its title. If it's around your topic, it probably will have it in the abstract. So if you know that yours is about user experience, then you can look for user experience in your title, because that's going to give you the narrowest number of results. Or alternatively, at least the abstract, the title, and the keywords, the author keywords, not the indexed keywords, the author keywords. So here we have, you search for, found no results. So there was nothing in this thing. There was been no masters and doctorates that have been written around this topic. Let's see if I did a anywhere, and I changed this one to anywhere, and see if anywhere in those masters and doctorates they talk about these expressions together. Somewhere in the document, we'll see, yes, there is 877 results of masters and doctorates that have these two phrases somewhere in the thesis, somewhere. And you've got other similar features and searchability. So, colleagues, I just wanted to show you, what is possible in terms of, on the one hand, Scopus, very powerful. Scopus is, please try. I want you to go back and do something organized. I want to, if I'm the examiner, I want to see how organized and what structure and what justification and logic you use to do your literature. If I don't see it, and if it's just a hodgepodge, you ran across the topic, but I don't get any logic, I'm going to look at the rest of your dissertation very carefully, and I'm more likely to find fault because you've already geared me to be negative. So try and do that as best as you can, and then use Scopus. Use Google Scholar only as a start point. If there's something that you don't find on the other and it is very relevant, that's fine. And then also use Proquest to search theses and dissertations. Don't forget about gray literature, especially if you're in a topic where there's very little. So in that laundry and dry cleaning one, my student had to go to the gray literature, the trade magazines of the Laundry and Dry Cleaning Association, and use stuff from that. Organized, justified, structured, Prisma, use that structure. And the more you convince me that you're organized, you're structured, and you're doing something objectively, then I am going to be, as an examiner, I'm going to be very happy with what you're doing. And it's going to feed into the rest of your study. It will almost certainly get you on track, get you narrow, get you to your methodology the best way possible. So yes, let me stop there. I think if I go to in my presentation, I have just recognized some sources, and thank you very much, everybody. Let me undo this. So I'm now back in your hands. I seem to have disappeared here.
We are here, sir. Doesn't we're following you.
Okay, there we are. Now I am not muted. I'm not muted, I'm open. I see that we still have 22 participants. I'm finished. If you have questions, let me have a look at the chat. I see there's been some questions. Some people have had to go. Let me see if there's questions here. Please write your questions. Okay, so there is, you will have access to the slides. The person that's doing corporate accounting, what I talked about, I feel was very general, very generic, not general, generic. This methodology, this approach, this discipline, this objectivity, the whole, everything I spoke about, doesn't matter what you're studying, whether you're doing medical science, whether you're doing corporate accounting, whether you're doing supply chain management, anything and everything, you need to have something that you discuss the literature that's around your topic. And all I try to do is provide you a way of doing that as in an organized way as possible. So I think it's still relevant to you. Michelle, Nodia, this is okay. Thank you. Very helpful. Okay. Not sure we appreciate. Okay, that's clear. No problem. Well, good. I just wish I had more time. Sometimes I try to put in too much. I apologize. And I get quite carried away. Professor Simon, FNG to everyone, use your location to streamline your search, except you use keywords, uses your location to streamline your search, except you use keywords. Yeah, that's quite a big thing. You know, even in the scoping and the systematic reviews. Now so there was an article that focused just on that. So they did the same scoping review. I don't know how many times, there was quite a lot, like 6 times. They did the same scoping review, systematic review 6 times. But what they did is they used a VPN, a virtual private network. And each time they did a new search, they used the virtual private network to do the search across, over, on, so that Google couldn't detect where they're from originally. And then they compared their results and they found the results dramatically different. And then their argument was, the article was that if you want to be doing a very objective, comprehensive study of the literature, then actually you need to use VPNs and look at the literature from different perspectives. So that's a hell of a lot of work. I don't know whether I would expect that of a student in a doctorate, but I mean, if you are trying to get into top level article journals, then you may have to do that amount of work to get in. Mind Manager, throw a little bit. Mind Manager is a mind mapping software. So let me just show you. I've got it. And maybe just see if I can throw it up. If I've got it here, let me just see. No. No. Let me, sorry. Give me just a second and I'll quickly put up, let me close this down and let me see. Okay, yeah, now I can use this one, ditch this thing. So this is fine. So it's share. Are you seeing this, the Zoom thing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Mind Manager. Let me try and show you something that I've done on. So I'm using an old version of Mind Manager. Let me just see if I can pick it up here. This is an old version. The new one is many times more powerful, and there's much more integration with things like MS Word and stuff like that. There we go. Recover file. Can you see what I'm seeing?
Yes, sir. Zoom is visible, sir. Zoom platform.
Are you seeing this this recovered that?
No. We are able to view only Zoom.
Oh, you're only seeing Zoom. Okay, fine. I just want to check this. No. All right, let me see if I can put this up to you. I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to try and share this thing now.
Dr. Nels?
Yeah?
Yes, I was just looking at the time. We have passed the 4:30, and normally our sessions end at 4:30. So I'm not sure how many minutes should I give you?
I'm finished, basically. I'm just answering a question. So if anybody wants to leave, they're welcome to leave. I just wanted to quickly show them this Mind Manager so that they have an idea of how it works. And I'm just struggling to find how to share. Give me a minute and then I'll show you, then you've seen it yourself.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, you do. You see that now?
Yes.
Yes.
So now if I was looking at, so I'm looking at country information, I want to put information and I want to put visa information. And if I want to add something to the visa information, I can now add something more. I can create a new concept. If I want to, for example, here, I can now go to this one. So let's take embassy pages and I can go to link and I can add a link. And then I can say link to www.unisa.ac.za and I can, that's the wrong thing, ASA, and I can say, okay. And you see it adds the link to that particular thing. Now I can, if I wanted to add another thought, let's say country information, I wanted, this is all travel stuff. Now I want to do economic. Then I would say economic information, and I might want to have, sorry, you see, I haven't used it for a while. There we are. And I want to use, I'm going to do another one now. I'm going to put travel information. And under travel information, I want to put hotels. And so it's a way of organizing your thinking. And under each of these, I can add MS Word documents. I can add web pages. I can add links to web pages. I can organize all of this. I can put references. I can, and the new version of this is so incredibly powerful for you to organize your thinking and your thoughts. So really consider using mine. But I'm not paid by them. I do realize that it is a pay-for service. It is the best in the world, in my opinion. So yes, you are paying money for it, but it's not. You know, I don't know, maybe you've got a bursary or you've got something and I think it's a couple of $100 to buy this program. And then it's permanent. For students, it's a permanent purchase. So it's yours. You don't have to pay annually, but for students, so you have to apply to use it as a student. So I'm finished. I'm stopping sharing. I'm back down here. And I hope that you've had something and have learned something, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nels. Thank you for your insightful, educative and illuminating presentation. It was very, very informative. So I see that we have run out of time. So without any waste of time, I'm going to allow you maybe 1 minute or 2 minutes just to comment or say something before we close the session. Any comment that you might have.
It would please me no end that if something I have told you, even if it's the smallest of things I've told you, makes a difference to your thesis as a whole, impresses the examiner, and makes your work less. Hopefully not more, but hopefully less, and that you are more in control of it. Sometimes things take a little bit of time up front to do because it's effort to put things into place. But if you don't do them, then you may find eventually that not doing something actually causes you more harm, more heartache, and more work in the long run, like keeping your references up to date. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the inspiring session. And I want to urge everyone to please go onto our social media platforms for more recordings and upcoming events updates so that we are on the same page. Dr. Nels, I would like to thank you very, very much for this wonderful presentation, and may God bless you for your wonderful work that you do.
Everyone.
Yes. Thank you. Let's all go to our social media platforms for more recordings. And another session that we're going to host that is going to be on the 7th of April, 2022 by Professor Emmanuel Awor. So I hope to meet you all on the 7th of April for the next session. May everyone have a good evening. And thank you so much once again. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, yes.